Jay, Allen Green has mentioned multiple times that this basketball roster ended up being more of a financial investment than he anticipated. Just before we get into the players specifically, can you tell us kind of broadly how was your approach to roster building with that in mind of the budget, and how did it expand as you went on, and what was that whole experience?
We'll start off by saying, number one, we're appreciative of the support of not only the administration downtown, but obviously the administration for athletics. There's a commitment in today's game that it varies. And when, even my expectations of what the cap would have been or what the numbers or going rates would have been when we started this offseason even went up dramatically just because of where the market was. Not getting into numbers specifically, but when you took where we were at and hit it by the new market, we were right at great great value for what we used. And like I said, obviously, Director Green and his support from him and his team and what they've built around has been incredible. Their trust and their commitment to this program has definitely been felt through A through Z with the way we're doing things, for sure.
Jay, just how are the waters these days? When you're out there, you brought in 11 guys. Is there a spectrum in terms of the extent to which other parties, other schools are involved, other people you have to muscle out? In other words, is it a dogfight every single time with every guy you're going after?
I think that was the thing, and I will sit there and say this, and it was really refreshing. Sometimes when a program has struggled for a period of time, the attractiveness of that location or things are sometimes come into play. That really wasn't seen here. The city of Pittsburgh, the university, our facilities, and our athletic staff sell itself, and that was the one thing I saw very quickly. And I've seen you guys. I read your all stuff, and I appreciate at least the good parts of it, and I thank you for that. But I would sit there and say, just like anything else, like we caught momentum, and when you have momentum, you have to ride it. And I think we did that. I think people are excited about what we're doing here. I think that starts, like I keep saying, with our administration. There is a commitment, and Director Green and his team have said that. And when you have leadership like that, and you feel that, hey, like you have their backing, it makes the process that much easier. I could feel throughout the energy throughout our program right now, even through Coach Capel and the rest of our staff. There's an energy. We have the guys here. Some people have been able to be around them, and it's just a totally different vibe. And no disrespect to those guys a year ago, like great kids, good players in their own respect. Games going in different directions, but when it comes to the recruiting aspect of it, it's definitely interesting, my man. It's definitely a change from when a lot of other guys were playing and things of that nature. I always laugh with Ricardo and Ronald, just like how much different this process is now than when they were here and recruited and things of that nature. But it's a grind. But I'll sit there and tell you this, for the guys that we went after, and we were going toe to toe with some very, very successful and big time programs, and the University of Pittsburgh went out on those.
Is there a guy or two on the roster that you feel like was a huge win for you guys to get, that someone you kind of saw that you really wanted, had some tough competition to go against, and you got them?
I value all of them in that way, and I know that's a cliche answer, but I say this because, right, like when you have that much turnover, right, and I think that was the one thing we as a collective whole thought, like, hey, we have to kind of retool from A to Z, and some of those decisions were popular, some of them weren't, and I think when those decisions were made, we feel very comfortable if we decide that that's where the direction we were going in. Building levels throughout adding talent and adding these well thought in pieces was something that was essential. And again, I can't thank Coach Cape, our coaching staff for sure, and the front office group that our administration has kind of tooled together. We have a great analytical team, that's the thing that I think separates us from a lot of stuff. We are really forward thinking here. I've been blessed to be with other programs and really, really good coaches, and the group that we have up top and the way we do things is as forward thinking of a group as I've ever seen. So that's a way that I think you're going to see Pitt Athletics take a step in front of a lot of different people because of the way they think and the way they operate.
What were some of the main priorities when it came to play style characteristics for guys you were looking for, and how do you guys check those boxes?
So I think I have a unique situation, right, where I was at the rival university a few miles down the road for quite a long time, right? And I think a lot of us, we're much more similar than we are different, right? And I think a lot of us, and this will be nostalgic here a little bit, but you think back to the Big East days, what played well there. Both brands in Pitt, physical. I mean, if you think about the wars that we used to have with them, it was tough basketball, really. And I think a lot of times, even with Pitt then, like people would talk about their offense because they were a really, really good defensive program under Jamie for a long time. And I think you see that, and that sometimes that gets giddy because they were good offensively too. They're like a top 10 offensive team, but that always got hidden just because of how good they were defensively. What I would sit there and say is we wanted to go back to that brand a little bit in a way. I think it bodes well in the ACC. Each Power 4 now, Power 4 league has their own tendencies and their own niches, right? Where you have the SEC and the Big 12, that's a lot of times very athletic, they different skill routes. This is a very more skill finesse league top to bottom. So I think some of that physicality and the way that we went about selecting guys for this roster, like I said, through those levels that we're talking about, like, hey, like, trust me, there's no one up in this room that wants to not have to replace 13 guys ever again. But when I sit there and tell you that, we did it on the fly where, hey, you create those levels, and you guys saw the ruling with the NCAA yesterday, right, where a lot of these guys have multiple years. So that was a little bit of forethinking by, like I said, our entire front office group that was something in mind where, hey, we want to do this, and we want to build a winner, but a consistent winner, not one that's a one-hit wonder, like, hey, we're going to have to do this every time. Director Green talked about the investment, and no question, and a lot of times that investment comes because we had to really flip that many people. If it was a normal year and you're sitting there and things are going well, and sometimes you're trimming off fat and you're adding selective pieces that ultimately you believe engage you or bring you to that next level, then it's not like that. Yeah, you might make an investment in a couple guys that are like, hey, they bring us up, but you're not doing that from A to Z. Unfortunately, for where we were at, that's what we had to do.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about Craig Gilbert. I'm wondering, was he a guy, when you were in Morgantown, did he at all have your gaze? Did you ever recruit him previously, or how did he get on your radar?
So we were that's the best thing about the coaching thing, and we always talk about it's a brotherhood, right? And myself, coach, our entire staff, we have connections, and that one was interesting because I have a very dear friend who's a Division II coach down in West Virginia, and he got to play against Craig multiple times this year, and he's been actually to his credit, he's been telling about him for months. And throughout the recruiting process, right, you sit there, you see where you're at in the process, you see where you're at budgetarily during that process, and you make those calls. Him being an Ohio kid originally, because of Coach Huggs, I had a lot of connections in that area. So I knew where the kid grew up. I knew enough people that were around him AAU-wise. And then obviously myself, Coach, and the rest of us have connections that whether it be the D2 level and stuff that got to play against Craig the last 2 years. And was a standout. And he's been phenomenal since he's been here. We're very excited about what he brings to the table along with the rest of the guys.
Nathan George and Vidongo seemed like some of the first guys you were really connected to that seemed like priorities for you. They obviously have a lot of experience in this league. What made them priority targets for you?
And I say success is looking like the one thing that we are really intrigued by and really kind of is everyone that we brought in on this roster has something to prove, just like us as a staff, right? Really, really good players and things in their collective, right? But a lot of them haven't won to a degree where they so I think a lot of that had to do with, hey, those are two really, really good players in this league that have had success at multiple stops, right? Obviously was at Georgia, but Nate was with him at G-Tech and then went to Cuse. And I think when you're looking at this, and that's a great criticism, is the fact that, you look in the thing, like a lot of these guys haven't played together. Well, that's what a lot of people don't know. Some of them have. 4 of them actually have played together for a long time in AAU prior to 4. So they have that relationship. They have that kind of connection where when you're trying to piece this lovely puzzle that we call the portal together during the time that we have it, you try to find any kind of edge and inside advantage that you can. So those two specifically being key cogs in what we're going to do, vets that have done it at a high level and have had success specifically together.
Which 4 played together in AAU?
If you look at Nate, Bai, Soare, and Amani, if I'm correct. So they had that perceived connection where, and most of these guys, because whether competition, whether it be AAU, whether it be college, things, they know each other well. And that's the one thing I noticed, and I think our staff noticed quickly, even when we were adding these guys, a lot of them wanted to play together. They were excited. They were following it just like a regular fan would follow it throughout this entire process of us flipping this roster and really, in our mind, doing what it took to get this program back to where it needs to be and where it needs to stay.
With Jaleel Bethea, high pedigree guy coming out of high school, went to a couple different schools, injury last year and whatnot. What do you see as the upside with him?
He's an incredible talent, and as good of a talent as he's an even better kid. Jaleel has faced more adversity in a young age than most go through. Obviously, his background and his pedigree is well known as the fact that he was projected as a top pick a few years ago, and he ran into a tough situation at his first stop where the coach was retiring mid-season, and you're going to be a lot of young kids as talented as they go. They need that backbone. They need that support. And when you're in a situation like that, that could deter a lot of people. And then he went to Alabama, and quite honestly, from everyone you hear, even the staffs down there, they loved him. And then he has a foot injury, a broken foot, right before preseason starts. So, and that kind of, he wants to come back mid-season, any competitor who wants to, but are you really ready? And you're getting thrown in a gauntlet, and that's a much better SEC now than it had been in a long time.
You look at a lot of the guys on the roster, a lot of high major experience. How important was that to go out and get guys with that level of experience?
Crucial, and that's a great question, just because of the fact, and historically with Cape here, right? Even his this group and their better teams, they've been older guys that are experienced, whether it been a high major, whether it been Big East, things of that nature. I say this in the recruiting process, and I think a lot of people understand later on. Not every place is the same, and you kind of have to adapt to where you're at. Just like when I was at WVU, we were never going to be Kansas. We were not going to be this. Here, are we Duke? No. Are we UNC? No, we don't have to be either. We get the right guys, we can beat them. We got the coaching staff, we have the right resources, we got the right people around us up top to lead us. If you find ways to offset the blue blood side of it where you're never going to be in those kind of things and accept that, it's better for you. So when we go with the vets, a lot of these guys have some really talented freshmen, right? A lot of talented freshmen that we're probably not going to get. And why would we go after them? If we're going to go after them the same way that they go after them, why don't we find another way around it? Go get some vets that could compete against them. Guys that have been seasoned, have taken hits and things in these different leagues that they've been in, and then really find your own niche.
The flip side of the high major experience question is then you have Alon somewhere in Armani Mighty, right?
Yep.
Two of the guys who are maybe some of the best players in their conferences, but at that lower level. How, what's the challenge of projecting those guys that they can take what they did there and do it in the ACC?
Great. I think the cool thing about Armani, and we'll start with him, he was at Boston College initially, right? And he played a game behind a guy named Quentin Post, who's been in the NBA for the last few years. So if you're going to have to play behind somebody and not be what you want to get, that's not a bad guy to play behind. I'm not specifically a Warriors fan, so let's go Knicks. But at the end of the day, it's one of those things where he's had that experience. And then, as a big, right, and there's, in the portal, it's always get it big quick because there's, for how staffs view him, there's a lot less very good bigs than there are a lot of other guards and positional players. His maturity, he really killed two birds with one stone, is the fact that he was a defensive player of the year and also is a double-double machine. And he does it, even if you see the guy, he hit the ball, he finds the ball. It's like a magnet, and it's good to see, and hopefully they can see that carry around. And then a guy like Alon, a vet, an older guy in theory in the way this game works now, but a guy who literally can play multiple positions. And to go a little bit further, when you talk about the resource side of things, listen, the stuff about our resources have been out there enough, things of that nature. And again, it's a testament to this administration and their support. And we're continuing to get better. We're not where we need to be, but again, for a year jump, that's incredible what they've been able to do. And I think that's, like I said, I keep saying it's a testament to how and what they do. But I would sit there and say this: when you have resources, you have to utilize them to the best of your ability. And if you see our roster, I think you'll sit there and say, hey, there's lots of guys on here that could play multiple positions, and you have to plan for that. And respect to the program or the teams of the past, a lot of times, before this happened, before a lot of us, they would really be one injury away. They had some really good top talent, right? But if there were one injury, there wasn't much to pick them up. And it was a big hole to fill, where, God willing, hopefully we never have those kind of injuries. But if we do, we have other guys that you could plug and play, and you're not just kind of, out of luck. That'd be the best way to politically correct say that.
Sorry if it's got asked already, but in today's college basketball world, I think some of Jeff's best teams had an established leader who carried over at least by a year or two's time. How important is that still to, one, find that guy for this team, and also have that for your next teams as well? Burton did that, I think it was 23, and then Henson in 24 for this team.
No question. And that really tails into what you're asking, the whole vet side of it. In theory, right, you have those older guys that you're bringing in to be dudes, that have gone through this gauntlet, whether it been here or whatever respectively they came from. Essential. And that can't be said enough. And a lot of times that takes its natural course, right? The survival of the fittest, the strong ones. Those guys are in the gym that are leading every day, leading by example. The one thing I could tell you in a short period of time since you guys have been here is a very, very workmanlike environment. Coach breeds that. Our whole staff, top to bottom, pushes that agenda side of it, and that's really what's been enjoyable to see so far is how diligent they are about their work. But yes, no question, the leadership side of it, that's something that's extremely important for success in general, but extremely important to our coach. So,
Jeff, a few days after the season came to an end, AD Allen Green sat down with you to discuss, evaluate the season, discuss the future. What was those conversations like, and did they go as you expected?
Go as I expected. I don't really know what I expected. I knew we had a very difficult season. We were never whole all year as far as injuries are concerned, but we had a losing season. And so, I've been in this business for a long time, and normally when that happens, sometimes there could be a change. And so I don't know if I expected that. The conversations were the conversations. It really wasn't anything except for, we're bringing you back. That's really the crux of it.
Jeff, when it comes to the investment that they've made, that this university's made into this team, that Allen's brought, one thing he's said is that they even spent more than they expected to spend on this team. Is that a sense of encouragement for you about the belief they have in what you guys are getting ready to do this year?
The more than expected, like that's interesting. But I'm grateful that we spent more than expected. With each iteration of this thing, and what I mean this thing is the NIL. Every year it's gone up by a significant margin. And so when you're playing from behind in that space, even when you invest more, other people are too. But I'm grateful for the investment that our athletic department and university has made. I think it helped us get a roster that we feel really good about. And we're excited about, the opportunity that we have to get to know these guys this summer, to work with them, and to hopefully put together a really good team that has great chemistry. Obviously has talent, but toughness and togetherness, and we can put a team out there that can win a lot of games.
Jeff, with so much newness and investment, like you said, a ton of new guys on this roster, how do you kind of see that translating into success in this season?
Yeah, there is a lot of newness. I mean, not just the roster, the coaching staff. It's a lot of newness. So for me, right now, in this summer, is going to be, I think the thing that's most important is me getting to know them, me getting to know each player. Some of them I've coached against, so I've seen them live. A lot of them has just been on Synergy, watching film before they got here. And so, I think it's really important for me to get to know them individually, and then figure out how to push them, how to get the most out of each guy, and then put those pieces together. It has some similarities to how it was 5 years ago. We were coming off of, our worst season since I had been here. I think we lost 21 games that year. And there were a lot of questions, and we had a lot of newness. We had, I think, maybe 3 or 4 guys returning, 2 of which were coming off injuries. But we had a lot of new guys, but that group came together pretty quickly. We had some adversity, but we fought through it. I'm hopeful that we can do something similar this season.
Oh, go ahead, Chris. Well, just in terms of roster makeup, since you draw that comparison to that team from a few years ago where you had maybe 2 kind of lead guards, 2 guys who could handle the ball, and just sort of the way the roster was built, do you see similarities in that sense too with this year?
Well, not necessarily. I was just saying the similarities of the position that we were in as far as coming off of, a 21 loss season. It had been 4 years we had not won. There was a lot of noise and questions and things like that. But we were able to come out and put together a really good team, really good season. Played for the ACC championship, won a couple of games in the NCAA tournament. But I do like the makeup. I think we have versatility, we have experience, we have guys with ACC experience. We have guys that have been really good players at the mid-major level. The thing that we need to have with each guy, winning has to be the most important thing. There has to be, a toughness and a togetherness, and we got to fight for each other every day.
Jeff, I think last season you had told us, and I won't put words in your mouth, but last year's team was in large part heading into the season constructed around Deshaun Jackson. And obviously when he wasn't available, that created a pretty big hole for you guys. I'm curious, at this point with this new roster, who or what is this roster constructed around? And do you feel like the roster is a bit better constructed to handle some of those injury situations and just with depth?
I thought last year our roster was built around Deshaun and Cam. Those were the two guys. And when you look at going into last season, the way that I thought, coming off of the previous year, when Dame got hurt, it took away the toughness of our team. I thought Dame and Ish were the two really tough, competitive, and Dame was our best player. He was the best defender. He could create things, but we really struggled with physicality and toughness after Dame went out for the remainder of that season. And so we really invested in our front court. And because of that, and because of, it was a large investment with those two guys, Deshaun being the most, we didn't have as much for perimeter guys. And so, we looked at Deshaun of kind of being our offensive hub. We could play through him. He can really pass and things like that. So certainly when he went out, that was very different. And we had to adjust. And, again, not to harp on anything last season, what we tried to do this year was to not have just one guy or two guys to build around. We wanted to have more versatility. We thought, as we put together this roster, that we could play perhaps different ways. So I think what we've done is given, we have versatility. We have guys that can shoot. We have guys that can handle. We have guys that can create. We have a guy that we can throw the ball to inside that's proven that in this league. So I'm not looking at one or two guys, but a collective group of guys that we feel can be really good for us.
Jeff, you mentioned chemistry earlier. What does that look like in these early practices, and what are you specifically watching for?
Right now, I'm just trying to get to know the guys. That's what I'm trying to get to do. I'm trying to figure out who they are as young men and figure out what's the best way to push them. What's the best way to get the most out of them? Each of them have talent. They all bring something to this team that can help us be really good. How do we get that out of them? How do we pull that out of them? How do we motivate them? How do we challenge them? How do you coach them? There's some guys that you can yell at in public and in front of everyone. There's some guys that you got to do it privately. So I'm getting to know them right now. I'm getting to know their games. And so really for me right now, it's a lot of watching. It's a lot of observing, but it's also a lot of spending time with them, away from the court, in the locker room, going out to lunch with them, having them over at the house, up in the office, just spending time talking to them and getting to know them. And I'm excited about that. I'm excited about who we have, and I look forward to getting to really, really know these guys and figuring out the best ways to bring out their talent.
On your best teams here, you had the leaders that you've known, and you could kind of identify JB, Blake, guys that could step up and get everyone to kind of follow them. As you're getting to know these guys, are there guys that are standing out? You're like, hey, I'm going to be able to lean on this guy to get everyone else to get on the bus when it's time.
Yeah, we're figuring that out. I mean, for me, this is my first week with them, and so figuring that stuff out. There's some guys that I think have the potential to do it, but you got to wait and see and let them do it in their own unique way. JB's way was very, very different from Blake's way when it was Blake's time to do it. His second year with us here. It's funny. I'm finding out more now about JB's way. I'm listening to him now tell stories about when his last year here, and so I think we have some guys that are capable of doing that. We're older now than we were last season, especially in our backcourt. We have more experience there than we did last season. I'm partial to guards with leadership, and so hopefully some of those guys will be able to step up for us.
Jeff, what was it like to go through some of those assistant coaching changes, especially with Jason?
That was difficult. It was difficult.
Alan Green put your professionalism in making those difficult decisions, but also finding guys that were going to fit, and you found guys that were familiar with this program. What do those new guys bring to the table that you're excited to work with your staff?
Yeah, those guys are great. First of all, I've known them really since I got this job. Have made an effort to really get to know guys, former players, what I mean. And I met both Ricardo and Ronald, my first year here, and was just really impressed with them as men. Ronald was on our staff a few years ago, or however many years ago. I think after my first year, I think he joined the staff and was with us for 2 or 3 years, and he wanted to coach, and I told him, look, I don't know if I'm going to lose anyone. So if you want to coach, you got to go coach. You can't stay in this spot. And he was hungry to do it, and he did it. Those guys have brought great energy. Obviously, they love this place. They have a love for this place that's different from anyone on our staff. Not that we don't, I love it. I've grown to love it, but they wore the uniform. They bleed this place. And so I'm excited about it, and also they bring different ideas. They bring new stuff. And so I'm really excited about that as well.
Jalil's a guy from Philadelphia originally and played in the ACC. Did you know him at all through recruiting? And what do you see as, he had a very high pedigree coming out of high school. What do you see as his upside?
Yeah, we recruited him, offered him. He came up for an unofficial visit at some point. His high school team was playing somewhere in the area. And so we got him over here for an unofficial visit. Talented, really, really talented. He was in a situation at Miami that was unfortunate. Coach L, retired during the season after about however many games that he coached. And so the rest of that season was a little bit chaotic down there. He transfers. I know Nate Oates pretty well. I was talking to him out at USA Basketball, and he said he was playing really well, and he broke his foot, and he was out 8 weeks, and so he missed the first part of the season. Obviously, once you get into season, sometimes your rotations are set, so he didn't get as much playing time. But he's talented. He can really shoot. He's a very good athlete, and it's our responsibility to bring the best out of it.
What made Makari more someone who is viable to bring back for this year's team?
Well, he wanted to come back. That's the main thing. Makari's a guy that believes. He has a toughness. He has a competitiveness. And we think he's a guy that can continue to get better.
Jeff, with all the talk of newness and unknowns, just what are the excitement levels of finally having the group together and you specifically finally getting to see him this week? And do you feel it in the gym?
Yeah, certainly I feel it in the gym. For me, that's my happy space, being with these guys in there. I can get away from everything or anything that may be going on in my mind or anything like that. So that's why it's important for me to spend a lot of time with them. Watching them on Monday, that was my first day with them. It was really exciting because you see the energy that they have. You see the talent. You see how hard they're going. You see them competing. You see them getting on each other. That was pretty cool to see. So them holding each other accountable. And so I'm really, really excited about the guys that we have and about trying to bring this thing together.
When you reflect on your time here at Pitt, and including last season, I mean, what adjustments, changes are you trying to make as a coach to improve this team moving forward?
You know, trying to get us to a point where we can be more consistently good. You know, the first 4 years were bad. Um, Again, no excuses for it. We didn't do a good job. You know, and then I thought we broke through. We had 2 years that were pretty good. The third year, I thought we were really good until our best player got hurt. We couldn't recover from that. And then last year, we weren't good. You know, there's a lot that goes into it. Hopefully, we can stay healthy. I think if we can stay healthy, I think we have a chance to be a good basketball team this year. And then being more disciplined with the details of all of those things. That's what we're trying to do.
What do the next few months look like for you as far as, programs and what you're expecting out of the guys?
Yeah, we'll be together for the rest of this month and all of July. You know, that'll be our 8 weeks that we have where we can work with them. What I'm hoping is that by the end of July, you know, we as a coaching staff have a better feel of who we are at that moment after 8 weeks. Hopefully we've seen some improvement from guys as far as conditioning, strength, in basketball, and then have a better idea of how we want to play. That's what we're trying to evaluate right now. How do we put these guys in the best position for their talent just to be natural and to come out? So that's over the next 8 weeks. That's what we're trying to do. We'll take a break in August where guys will have a chance to go home. And then once we come back at the end of August, we get started. And so, again, when we come back, we'll continue to work on individual stuff. After a couple of weeks of that, we'll get into team stuff and go from there. But I'm excited about the journey going on this journey with this group.
Jeff, what's your excitement for the backyard basketball classic? The classic rivalry between you, but it's going to be at a neutral location. Technically, is down the street at PPG Paints. Just your response to as this probably being part of the efforts for the Allen's above the cap for NIL fundraising efforts, and that being part of the strategy.
I'm excited that we're trying something. I'm excited that we are, Allen hadn't been here, but I guess this is year 2 for him. I've been here since the beginning of NIL. And it's not going away. It never was once it started. And, we've operated here like it was the boogeyman. And so I am glad and excited that we're trying stuff, like we're trying to do stuff. We're not putting our head in the sand like this is going away, like it's not. And so, last year when we played Penn State and Hershey, like we got some NIL stuff from that. And so, and that crowd was magnificent there. And so hopefully we have a great crowd. Hopefully it's a great event.
I remember when Allen got inaugurated and it was right in here, you talked about the need. We need to start building. And over the time he's been here, he's been putting things together. How involved have you been in as far as the strategizing and thinking through how to not only build those efforts up, but also make sure that basketball is at the center of the efforts to make that happen?
Yeah, I haven't been involved. He and his team have done that, and they've come up with different ideas and things like that. But I haven't been involved in those conversations.
Games are slowly trickling out. Do you know how many non-conference games you'll play this year?
What do we play? 18, 20? What were we? 18 conference games? Yeah, so then that means we're at, I think, 14 non-conference. Does that sound right? 13 or 14? I think it's 14. They added another game this year. Yeah, so I think it's 14 non-conference games.